Hey everybody, Christopher Rod here, and welcome back to the next installment of the Marvel's Midnight Sun Superhero Showcase that I'm creating in partnership with Marvel and 2K. In our first video, we talked about the always brave, always humble Captain America. We know him, we love him. Keeping with those obviously similar character traits, I think it's only fitting that we now look to Cap's best frenemy, Mr. Tony Stark, aka
Iron Man,
the also totally humble, kind, genius, billionaire philanthropist guy. You may have heard of him. In Marvel's Midnight Suns, Iron Man's playstyle revolves around one of the game's mechanics called redraw. So in combat, your turn is comprised of 3 card plays, 2 redraws, and 1 move. Using redraw allows you to get rid of a card that you don't currently need in hopes of getting one that you do. However, Iron Man has a habit of making himself the center of attention. You may have noticed this previously. Many of his cards get buffed in your hand when you choose to use one of your redraws on them. As a result, he's basically a jack of all trades, but he masters them all too. Area damage, direct damage, support, defense. The man can blast anything, and on a personal aside, he's also a blast to play with. So when asking yourself, is this a mission for Iron Man? You'll almost always be able to justify having him in your squad. You do have to keep his redraw mechanics in mind though, because to utilize his powers effectively, you want your precious redraws to be consumed for Iron Man's benefit.
Hope Hydra has good insurance.
Now, if he's paired with allies that rely on using a lot of heroic abilities, you may find that your hand gets clogged with expensive heroics that you can't play because you're using all of your redraws on Iron Man cards, so plan accordingly.
I hope you are building one of those suits for me.
Maybe instead of asking yourself the question, is this a mission for Iron Man? To which the answer is almost always going to be yes. You should be asking yourself, who can I bring to support our handsome, rich, iconic Robo-Man instead? One of Iron Man's skill cards that I would consider core to his deck is the aptly titled Leave It to Me. Now playing this will not only draw 2 Iron Man cards, but it will also generate extra heroism and grant extra redraws. On upgrade, this card increases in power pretty dramatically by adding 2 fast, and then one of the potential late game mods that you could run into would be the ability to add resist. Soon enough, your hand's gonna be full of Iron Man cards, just the way that Tony would like it. But to be fair, you're gonna like it too. So now you've got yourself a handful of Iron Man cards, and you want to be able to generate even more redraws so you can buff them up. Well, if you spend your time developing your friendship with Tony, which isn't always easy, the payoff will definitely help. His passive ability titled I'll Handle This will grant you an extra redraw if you play 3 Iron Man cards in a turn, and the higher level friendship version of this lowers that requirement to only 2. So by now, you're probably seeing Iron Man can do a lot on his own, and he has his own self-fulfilling synergies too. And this is without even talking about some of the damaging skills, so let's get into that.
It really is a great way to stay in shape.
One of his heroics is called Surgical Strike, and that's going to let you chain together a number of attacks based on how close the enemies are in relation to each other. The number is based on the amount of Iron Man cards that you have in your hand at the time. Now earlier we talked about potentially having a clogged hand, but if your hand is clogged with Iron Man cards, then Surgical Strike is going to absolutely crush. Not all clogs are alike, my friend. It's not uncommon to be able to chain 5+ attacks if you play your cards right, and when you invest in upgrading Surgical Strike, you can reduce the heroism cost, and one of the potential late game upgrades could add a chance to apply Vulnerable. Now, if chaining enemies isn't tickling your metal, then maybe air superiority will put a dent in your suit. Okay, I'm done. Why have a limit to the number of enemies you hit when you can just damage them all? Air superiority not only looks stunning, but it can absolutely clear a battlefield if handled correctly. Now, before you play air superiority, you may want to use some of your redraws on it, because each time you do, you're going to add 10 damage. And upgrades on this card are well worth it as well. The first upgrade lets you more than double the base damage, and one of the potential late game upgrades could apply a mark to every remaining Hydra, setting up future free card plays really nicely. Now let's finish this up by showcasing Stark's incredible Midnight Suns card called Hellfire Beam. Utilizing the weapon that's closest to his heart, the Iron Knight shoots a beam of hellfire straight from his chest that hits all enemies in a line. And while the redraw on Hellfire Beam is similar in nature to air superiority, there's seemingly no limit to how many times you can redraw to buff it, whereas air superiority does have a cap. So if you have leftover redraws available at the end of your turn, not sure what else to do, slam it into Hellfire Beam because it's going to become insanely powerful. At its second level upgrade, each knockout grants an extra redraw, which continues to pump up Iron Man's cards. And one of the potential late game upgrades can add a chance to apply Marked. All of this at a lower heroism cost than Air Superiority, and I mean, just look at it. Visually, one of my favorite skills on the entire roster. So, as you can see, Iron Man, he's a flashy guy with a flashy suit and a flashy deck to match. It's all just a rather very intelligent system that works extremely well on its own, but at the end of the day, he's only one man in a suit. He is going to need the help of some friends to defeat Lilith in the ultimate battle to save the world. One of those closest friends will be coming up in a showcase soon, so if you're not already subscribed to the channel, now would be a good time to do so. We'll have all these videos in a playlist, so come back anytime and catch up on any videos you may have missed or rewatch them or anything you like. We're fine, we're cool, everyone's easy. Remember to check out the links down below for all things Marvel's Midnight Suns, and thank you so much to Marvel's Midnight Suns for working with me on this series. We will see you in the next one.